Kate is in the studio standing by. 9 News at 6 begins right now.
Tonight, the hills are awash as Adelaide cops are drenching, and breaking news of a rescue underway right now. Cars wedged inside a building at Hindmarsh, the aftermath of a chaotic crash. Gone in a flash, the tragic fate of all on board the Titanic sub, now wreckage on the ocean floor. Revelations this Hindley Street rampage was just one in a young woman's fast food frenzy. And a mother confronts the Health Minister with her daughter's near-death experience at the Kangaroo Island Hospital.
This is Adelaide's 9 News.
Good evening. A man has told 9 News how he feared he'd be swept away in floodwaters when his car became submerged in the Adelaide hills. Emergency services rescuing several drivers who became trapped in their vehicles when a huge storm hit, flash flooding threatening homes and turning roads into raging waterways.
A rescue operation in the dark. A couple trapped in their submerged car, floodwaters rising around them at Eden Hills. Giovanni Silvestri also caught out, his vehicle swept away by flash flooding in Hindmarsh.
All of a sudden, I found myself in just over a metre of water where the car just stopped and started floating away. I was frightened. They loaded me and the young man as well on the dinghy and took us back to the other side of the river.
Giovanni, just one of 7 swiftwater rescues SES volunteers were called out to in the last 24 hours.
That's where I came into action and moved about half a dozen cars there. Yeah, the owners just sort of had to leave them there because the water was up. Basically seat level.
Roads cut in two by the sudden deluge, with Adelaide recording its wettest day since last June.
This is potentially a one-in-a-decade type rainfall event for this particular day.
A swollen dam at Lenswood threatening to burst, emergency services working quickly to contain it. Cox Creek at Bridgewater turning into a raging torrent. Heavy rain pelted the hills, water lapping at the back door of several properties and inundating others. Homes at Waterville Gully also in the firing line.
This whole block of land on the other side was completely destroyed.
The storm also uprooting trees, sending them straight through ceilings and over fences, with thick fog an added hazard for drivers. The State Emergency Service was inundated with calls for help overnight, volunteers attending more than 250 jobs in trying conditions, most in the Adelaide Hills.
The rescuers had a very busy night.
Those rescued, like Giovanni, just grateful they made it through unscathed.
I won the lottery.
Kelly Hughes, 9 News.
And in breaking news, emergency services are right now launching a rescue at Finnis, south of Adelaide, where a car is trapped in floodwaters. The alarm was raised about an hour ago. A crew on board a rubber ducky is heading into the torrent now. It's not known how many people are in the car. We'll have more as it comes to hand. And we're being told to brace for the next round of wild weather. Chelsea Carey joins us live from Bridgewater. Chelsea, more warnings are in place tonight.
Yes, Kate, damaging winds are the main concern this weekend, but more showers are on the cards too, and the ground is already saturated. In 24 hours, we had 42 millimetres of rain recorded in the city, 52 mils at Marion. Big totals right across the suburbs, but the biggest falls were through the hills here, 87 mils at Uragla and 96 millimetres at Woodhouse. And the rain across South Australia has prompted SA Water to open the floodgates at Maiponga Reservoir for the first time this year. Since the start of the week, around 2.5 billion litres of water has entered the reservoir. The gates are expected to stay open for the next few days as authorities manage the water levels. And more showers along with gusty winds are on the way for Adelaide tomorrow. I'll have everything you need to know a little later. Kate?
Great, thank you, Chelsea. Emergency crews are on the scene of a chaotic crash at Hindmarsh. Josh Money's there. Josh, 2 cars have gone into a building.
They have, Kate. They were wedged into the front of this speech pathology clinic here on Port Road, and they were sent spinning out of control from a 3-car crash that happened just before 4:30 this afternoon. Now, paramedics were called to treat the drivers, but fortunately there are no serious injuries, and there was also no one hurt inside the building. It is a brand new building that's only just been finished, with the clinic supposed to open in less than a month. Now, part of it collapsed when the cars were removed a short time ago. One driver told us he was hit from behind leaving a service station, which sent his car into the path of a third car, both of them then crashing into the clinic.
Then after being hit, I got knocked into the next lane and couldn't stop. The other car hit me, they were right next to me, and then we just ended up straight into a building.
Frustrating and just devastating, to be honest. Not really the start to the weekend that I was hoping.
So the building is now being shored up and the clean-up will no doubt take some time. So if possible, avoid the city-bound side of the road.
Josh Money, thank you. Well, for days, the world watched on, hoping the Titan submersible would be found with all 5 men alive on board. But today, we've learned for all that time, there was no hope at all. The discovery of debris on the ocean floor has led experts to conclude the vessel suffered a catastrophic failure in the first hours of the dive.
A second tragedy at the site of the Titanic. This morning, searching in an ocean of unknowns, a rover found pieces of the missing sub, indicating it imploded.
The debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber.
The debris field was found less than 500 metres from the bow of the Titanic. 5 major pieces were discovered, including its nose cone, the landing frame and the tailpiece of the submersible with the Ocean Gate logo. It means the banging noises that were detected for days could not have been the missing crew. Tonight, the US Navy confirmed it heard an implosion in the area where the sub was operating only hours after it lost communication. On board, British billionaire adventurer Hamish Harding, who'd travelled to space and the deepest place on Earth, the Mariana Trench. In a statement, his family said, "If we can take any small consolation from this tragedy, it's that we lost him doing what he loved." Also on board, French historian Paul-Henri Nargeolet and Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman. The 19-year-old's aunt today claiming he was terrified about the trip but wanted to please his dad for Father's Day.
I'm also sure that he would not have taken his son on board if he thought there was really, a serious level of danger.
96 hours since the Titan lost contact and the Coast Guard confirming what we all feared. The question is now, how did this happen?
Those questions about regulations that apply and the standards, that's going to be, I'm sure, a focus of future review.
The finger of blame is being pointed at the sub's final victim, Ocean Gate CEO Stockton Rush, whose wife is a descendant of Titanic victims.
I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
Rush is accused of cutting corners and avoiding regulation, fearing it would stifle his innovation.
We certainly don't want to stop the entrepreneurial developments because quite often they develop technologies that are major steps because they're not hindered by the regulations.
The director of the film Titanic and deep-sea explorer James Cameron comparing this to the world's most famous maritime disaster.
The captain was warned. There were icebergs ahead. It was a moonless night, and he plowed ahead.
It claimed 1,500 lives, now 5 more lost to the ocean by their captivation with that doomed voyage. In Boston, Alison Petrowski, 9 News.
3 girls have been hit by a car on Salisbury Highway in the heavy rain at Parafield Gardens about 6:30 last night. Fortunately, the 18, 13 and 12-year-olds were not seriously hurt, though they were taken to hospital for checks. Police spoke with the driver of the Mazda, but she's not been charged. It's been revealed a woman's bizarre rampage abusing staff at a city McDonald's was just one in a string of similar outbursts. A serial counter-hopper with a history of throwing food and damaging property, she's now pleading to be released from custody.
On the wrong side of the counter, giving staff a serve. A drunk and aggressive Nouria Halaki helps herself at McDonald's on Hindley Street as staff call for help. The tirade in December last year in front of a packed restaurant, only ending when police escorted the 20-year-old away. Halaki had only been released from prison the month prior. She was homeless and drinking heavily. She's since pleaded guilty over the rampage, which racked up a damage bill exceeding $1,400. Crying with her head in her hands today as her lawyer told a magistrate his client is embarrassed.
Extremely remorseful. She's really ashamed of what happened and all the attention that she got. And she just wants to put this time behind her and move on with her life.
But that night in December wasn't the first time. Just 2 days earlier, Halaki was throwing food behind the counter of a McDonald's at Salisbury Plains. The store forced shut to clean. She's also been drunk and aggressive to staff at a Hungry Jack's on Hindley Street and helped herself to cigarettes at an OTR. She's admitted to those charges too and is back in custody. Police prosecutors say that's where she should stay, although her lawyer argues the 3 months she served is long enough. She'll be sentenced next month. Beth Excel, 9 News.
Firefighters needed a cherry picker to remove an overtly racist display at Port Adelaide, an Aboriginal flag defaced with racist slogans and a Nazi swastika, tied to the old Trowbridge loading ramp.
Racism has no place in our state, and the swastika is a symbol of hate.
Police were alerted to the flag by a resident nearby. They have seized it and are now investigating. Notorious Adelaide conman Robert Wayne Collins is back behind bars tonight after breaching his home detention. The 80-year-old fraudster was convicted of 7 fraud offences in 2020 and sentenced to a minimum 4 years in jail. And a current affair investigation uncovered that sentence had been commuted to home detention, despite his sentencing judge warning he had no prospects of rehabilitation. Earlier this month, he was discovered attending church services in Wayville, which he was allowed to do under the terms of his home detention, but a separate breach has landed him back in jail. You can see the full story tonight on ACA at 7 p.m. A truck driver accused of causing a horror smash at the base of the freeway has been ordered to stand trial. Queenslander Ross Hicks today formally denying multiple charges of causing harm by dangerous driving, as well as endangering life and failing to use a low gear. 9 people were injured when the 61-year-old's truck ploughed through the intersection at the bottom of the southeastern freeway in July last year. A mother has launched an emotional attack on one of SA's regional health networks as our state's leaders attended a community forum on Kangaroo Island. It's prompted an investigation into her claims that a misdiagnosis risked her daughter's life.
The tears of a mother failed by our regional health network.
I've spent across those 23 days in the hospital 5 days wondering whether or not I would bring my child home in my arms or in a box.
With the ear of the health minister, she told of a ruptured appendix, misdiagnosed because of a lack of proper diagnostic tools on the island. She also expressed concerns about a lack of paediatric expertise.
And I don't want another family to go through what we went through.
The boss of SA Health also on hand at the Community Cabinet Forum. The Minister today launching an immediate investigation.
I thank you for raising it because it's going to help us in terms of how we can try to make it better for other families into the future.
There's an opportunity to address the issue right now, and that is the absence of a paediatrician or paediatrician services for Kangaroo Island.
The island's only hospital in Kingscote is about to receive a $15 million upgrade. Birthing suites also reintroduced. And it can't come at a better time. The local health network says it's in the midst of a baby boom, restarting a very exclusive club known as the Islanders. You can only be in it if you're born here. These little ones among some of the first newborn Islanders this year.
Given the amount of families that live here, and we were certainly seeing the need.
We've got another 21 on the books ready to go before the end of the year, so yes, definitely for Kangaroo Island, we're in a boom.
And the upgrade to health services is not just for locals. During the summer months, tourism sees the population on Kangaroo Island almost double.
There is a lot of opportunity for this part of our state, and we've got to realise that ambition, but at the same time we've got to make sure that people living here get access to the services that a first world country can afford, and that's certainly true here as well.
Ollie Haig, 9 News.
The RSPCA is searching for the owner of a dog found wandering severely emaciated at Lockleys. The female, estimated to be around a year old, was found near the Kionga golf course. She's now in the care of vets. And Adelaide pet shop owners pleaded guilty to ill-treating snakes. 3 pythons were found in poor health without appropriate heating lights and living conditions at the store in the northeastern suburbs. Each was showing signs of illness and distress. One had to be euthanased, another was also found dead. In addition, a third of all snakes sold or gifted through the store were recorded as having died. The 66-year-old shop owner today told a court he won't be renewing his licence to keep exotic animals. He was convicted and placed on a good behaviour bond. A man's been arrested after this vision was made public of a break-in at a Seaton home. Valuables and sentimental items were taken from the elderly victims who installed the high-quality cameras after a previous robbery. A 34-year-old suspect was arrested at Ovingham and charged over the home invasion, as well as 2 other break-ins and the theft of a charity box. He faced court today. A diplomatic standoff is brewing in the nation's capital, with Russia filing a High Court challenge against an attempt to evict them from land near Parliament. The block was leased for a new embassy, but was then terminated. The Prime Minister tonight laughing off a diplomat who's refusing to leave.
The stubborn squatter of the small white demountable. Visitors discouraged on the door, but welcomed on the doorstep. The trespassing tenant surfaces only for a smoke.
A bloke standing in the cold on a bit of grass in Canberra is not a threat to our national security.
This bit of grass was originally slated as the site of a new Russian embassy, but last week Parliament passed urgent legislation to tear up Moscow's lease. The land might be a long way from Vladimir Putin, but it's too close to Parliament, according to national security advice.
The Australian government maintains diplomatic relations with the Russian Federation, but we will always act in Australia's national interest.
Tonight, that national interest is being challenged in the High Court, Russia seeking an injunction while it prepares a case against the eviction.
Russia hasn't been real good at the law lately.
The national security concern that we were seeking to manage was the proposal to build a second Russian embassy a stone's throw from Parliament House.
Australia may have to compensate Russia for any construction costs. In the meantime, the nameless diplomat is technically trespassing, and there's nothing the government can do about it.
They could theoretically be detained, but they could not be prosecuted under Australian law because they would, of course, be able to plead that they have diplomatic immunity.
If the law of Australia has terminated Russia's lease on that land, then Russia should not be occupying that land.
One option at the government's disposal is to declare the lone diplomat persona non grata, or an unwelcome person. He could then be deported, but the government would have to consider the potential impact on our diplomats stationed in Moscow.
The Australian government would probably need to anticipate that there would be some retaliation. Russia could send a rotating number of diplomats in and out of this site.
The site is secure and we're comfortable with our position.
Likely more comfortable than his position. Reece D'Alessandro, 9 News.
Well, what would you do with $100 million? Gosh, the mind boggles. But that's the question a man is asking himself tonight after becoming the second biggest Powerball winner in Australia's history. We're told he erupted into hysterical laughter after receiving the call. Most of us can only dream about. The unnamed father from Sydney could easily purchase his favourite footy club or buy the same private jet as Oprah Winfrey if he's looking for something more luxurious. I bet he's got a whole new bunch of friends.
I reckon that, yeah. I'm not sure you want to tell anyone, would you? Maybe
no.
He can tell us, though. We'll help him spend it.
Oh, sure. We'll keep it a secret. Well, sport is coming up a little later, and Rennie, the Crows are on a mission in Melbourne.
They're off to the MCG this weekend, Kate. They are desperate to shake this tag. They can't win on the road. Only problem is they're coming up against one of the flag fancies in Collingwood. Hi, everyone. We'll speak exclusively with Darcy Fogarty with all the latest a little later, but also ahead. Don't discount Dursma. The Power's forgotten man plots his comeback. Plus, fans go wild for the giant considered a generational talent at the NBA draft.
Thank you, Tom. We'll see you soon. Well, insurance providers, they're the lifeline for millions of Australians. Next, the industry watchdog comes down hard on those who've overcharged their customers. Have you been impacted? We'll tell you next. Plus, the Aussie airline topping the list for causing cancellation chaos.